So before we set her up with her microphone, I want to introduce you to Grandmother Barbara Vitale. She is a lecturer, a ceremonialist. She's the author of several best-selling books. Some of them are entitled Unicorns Are Real, Free Flight, and she has a brand new release as well too. So you might want to check out her books. They're absolutely amazing. Her new release is Beyond Imagination. Grandmother was trained by her grandmother in ancient Celtic traditions and made a relative by the Lakota Nation in the 1980s. And she has followed this sacred path all this time. She is known as Blue Star Woman. Please help me in welcoming Barbara Vitale.
Work.
Yeah. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. I don't think it's fair to have to follow Pookie. What's also not fair is that Spirit, I keep making notes of what I was going to say today, and they keep disappearing. So I am not responsible for anything I say today. You blame Spirit. Or you can blame Blue Star Woman. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Blue Star Woman was the sister of White Buffalo Woman. And she's not mentioned a lot in the tradition. She is mentioned more in among the women, and the grandmothers told me. And I was happily going along in my metaphysical yah-yah, like Steffi, and my Celtic way. And I was, I had left my modeling career, believe it or not, and I was a radio announcer, and then I started teaching children who had challenges with the system. I'll put it that way, because I don't like any labels. And I did that for a while. And then sometimes my mouth gets me in trouble. So I said, I want everything removed from my life that isn't of love and light. Within 7 days, I was served with divorce papers. My husband moved out. I lost my home and fired from my job. Just a clean sweep. So watch your mouth. The other thing that, and they told me I couldn't swear, but 88, I don't care. I don't care what people think of me anymore. You know, they say, grow your long hair, it's your power. I don't have any. Baldness runs in our family. I threatened to wear a wig today, but now the girls told me I looked unnatural. I'm going to buy a long white wig. Anyway, so about 2 months ago, so one night I just said, I am so tired of listening to this shit. 2 days later, I lost my hearing. So I'm not fooling around this stuff. The more powerful you get, the more you move into the places that Pookie wants you to. And you will, you don't have a choice. You will move there. This is a time where choices, you know, you have a choice, you can, okay, I was given a vision not so long ago, and I saw two earths side by side. And one was full of light and one was full of darkness. And some people, if they choose, can move over here. And, but the problem with moving over here, if you are invested in being a teacher and changing people, you won't have a job, because over here, everybody will be of love and light. Over here, the planet will look very much like the way it does now, and we'll still need teachers and people who reach out and help people. So when that time comes and one earth moves into another dimension and this one stays put, you get a choice. And there are no wrong choices. There's only lessons. There's no victims. Period. Everything that comes into your life, you either agreed to before you got here. And I remember standing up there. I remember clearly standing up there with the spirits, and the spirit looked at me and he said, "You don't have to do all of this in one lifetime." And I said, "Oh, don't worry, I won't forget." As I went down that channel, that birth channel, everything was squeezed out. So for me, birth is death, and going to the other world is birth. But when I came out, I couldn't remember anything I had volunteered for, not a thing. It was just blank. So I went through 18 years. Well, first of all, I chose an abusive mother and father, which was my greatest gift. I want you to hear me. My greatest gift. I never forgave her. I honored her. And there's a big difference between those two things. If you forgive someone, you're still saying they did something wrong. No. You ask for them. You know, love yourself, but honor them. So in the book, I talk about how Spirit came to me and gave me a really good scolding about the difference between forgiveness and honoring. And my mother was my greatest gift. But at the time, I had not forgiven her, so I married her. Because whatever you're holding, that pattern continues on. So I married my mother and stayed there for 18 years, and then I got a divorce, and guess what? The first boyfriend that came through was my mother. So I took 7 years and just said, I'm going to learn to love myself and heal myself. Well, during that time, I got tricked by the Lakota people. And how many of you remember Jean Houston? A few of you, yeah. She was one of the first metaphysical spiritual teachers, beautiful person. So I had lost my job and I was traveling all over the world lecturing to teachers. And I was at the Jean Houston conference, and there were two Native men sitting next to me, and they wanted to bring holistic education, which was what I was teaching, to the reservation. So I thought, I'm going to go back and get a copy of the Federal Register and find them the money they wanted. And I did. I found thousands of dollars for these two men. Couldn't find them in. So I called the Bureau of American Indians, and I found out there are two. There's one for the private Indian schools and there's one for the others. Well, I got the private ones, and a man by the name of Alan Ross answered the phone. And he says, oh, I don't know these men, but my brother does holistic education. Give him a call. So I did. And Chuck Ross answered the phone and he says, oh, we know you. We're using your book out here. Will you come out and lecture for us? Now, whenever something is dropped in your lap and it comes from spirit, don't say in your head, I don't know if I should do that. If it's there, you just do it. So at the time, I was traveling and making $5,000 a day plus expenses. And I said, well, I'll be glad to come if you can pay me. And he says, we've got $1,000 for a week. And I heard, so I went. And that's when my becoming a Lakota happened. At the time, I had cancer. I had a tumor this big in my neck. And so I called out there to Chuck Ross and I said, do you have any medicine in out there? Now I knew nothing about Native America, nothing. I mean, I'm a Celtic trained druid, nothing. He says, we don't have those anymore. Okay. So I went out one evening, I'm talking to the tribal council and the parents, and Pep Ross comes in, he says, the old man's here to see you. I said, what old man? I don't know any old man. He says, medicine man's here to see you. Now, Grandpa never called himself anything. He says, I do nothing. I am nothing but a hollow bone. Period. So I'm looking out there and I'm not seeing humans, I'm seeing hollow bones, so you wouldn't be here. Your job is to be that conduit to bring it out. Whether it's your ancestors or Chakashava or God or Jesus, you're that conduit. That's where the power comes from. And the more you're open, the more it builds. So Grandpa walks in, and in the Lakota tradition, you always have a giveaway when you have anything good happen to you, especially a healing. And I was just loaded with jewelry, expensive jewelry, Navajo jewelry especially. And they said to me, take your jewelry off. And so I did, and I put it on the table, and I never saw it again. It was gone. That was my giveaway. So Grandpa walks up and he says a prayer, and he says, I do nothing. Takashala does this. And he walked towards me. And when he got fairly close to me, he pulled out a lighter and he began to run it up and down his arms. And I'm thinking, why isn't he burning? Why isn't he burning? So then he said, put your arms out. So I did. And he ran the lighter up and down my arms. And I'm looking at it and I didn't burn. He put his hands on my neck and prayed. 15 minutes later, the tumor was gone. That got my attention. I said, of all the things I've studied, I've never seen anything like this. So that was my beginning of my Lakota jewelry. And it got worse by then. I'm looking at Nikki because she knows a lot of this stuff. In the old times, and this was in the late 70s, why, especially if you had skin. I mean, I don't look Lakota, guys. I look Irish, which is part of my, DNA. They will push you to the limit, absolute the limit. If you don't react, you get a gift. If you react, you get nothing. Grandpa used to call me up. He never asked for anything. And I'm going to get to this. Don't worry about it. Anyway, he called me up and he said, granddaughter, my car broke down. I said, okay, Grandpa, get it, call a tow truck. And because he had saved my life, I wouldn't have said no to him for anything. And I said, have your car dropped into Rapid City and get it fixed. So he did, and he told me where it was, and so they fixed it. Next call I get, granddaughter, I need a new car. I said, Grandpa, we just had yours fixed. He says, they don't like Indians. He says, I'm not going to drive that car. I said, can you give it to one of your kids or somebody? He says, if they drove that car, it would kill them. I said, okay, Grandpa, find your car. Let me know how much to send. That's the difference between how you all think about walking and the way I was trained and the way Nikki was trained. It's not easy to walk these ways, is it, Nikki? What? I can't hear you.
She said it's easy.
It's easy, yeah. So, but it's a different way of teaching. So what I'm going to share with you today is some of the stuff here, which is all Lakota, has to do with frequency, because you can take off and you can love, and you will. Like I said, you're not going to have a choice. And but there is that everyday living that you can do, and that honoring that you can do with every breath you take, which gives you a connection not only to Takashla, but to Makah, Mother Earth. And when you understand, and I've said this many times, and I'm going to say it again, when you walk out there and you walk on that grass and that gravel, are you saying thank you? Those are live beings. They're not gravel. Each one of those stones has a divine essence. Just because that grass isn't some medicine doesn't mean it's not alive. So as you begin to bless all of what you are, do you understand that you are not this human being, that you are the whole universe of love, and you hold it right here? And do you understand that there are no victims? If you experienced trauma as a child, wonderful. That's wonderful. You know, most of the spiritual people I know have had to go through that dark side of the soul. Because if you agreed to help people who were hurting and had trauma, who's the best person to do it? The person that's been through it. I had a lot of lessons. Not only the trauma, but I was a raving alcoholic. Big time. Absolutely. I stopped drinking when I woke up in somebody's bed and didn't know their name. I never took a drink after that. But I'm sharing this with you so you can understand that these are things you asked for, and if you have had these things, you can heal. It's all sacred. There is nothing, well, maybe a little. The other thing to understand is once you step into accepting a sacred object or an agreement or a purpose, you give up your life. You give up your life. Your life becomes your purpose. You know, I can still have coffee with my husband in the morning. And by the way, those people that know him, he's an angel, isn't he? anybody that's around me very long is an angel. I'm a handful. I admit it. They're laughing because they know it's true. But I do walk the Lakota way, absolutely traditional. Because I promised to, number one, and number two, the way you put the Yanipi up, if you do it in the traditional way, it carries a different energy. It has more power, you know. And I mean, when we first started, I made them measure to the inch. At least I didn't do what Grandpa did, which let us put it up and then told us it was awful, take it down and start over. Oh no, that's the way, back there in the late 70s and early 80s, that's the way we were taught. Now, I'm going to get up to here. Do you understand that everything is sacred? Everything has the essence of love in it. And by the way, following you is a trip. So I'm going to show you some of the traditional women's ways. And the reason I want men here is because men are starting to cook for the ceremonies, especially for the women's moon ceremony that is in Canada, started in Mexico, moved to Canada, is in New York, is in North Carolina. So it is important to understand that. So let's start with a very simple thing. Spoons. Okay. What the grandmother said to me is, whenever you are cooking anything. Now, let me regress. The grandmothers told me, and I'm not downing men because you have your power here and the women have their power here. But the grandmother said the women control what happens in the family and at the Sundance and at any feast. And when you cook with a wooden spoon with red on it. The red is the blood of the people and it is protection. Now, there's no reason those of you who don't walk the Lakota way can't do that, is there? When you go in the kitchen, I was told you have a pair of shoes, house shoes. You never, ever wear your shoes that you wore outside or around other people in that kitchen, because you're bringing all their energies in. No gossiping, no talking about anybody. Nothing that is not of love goes in that kitchen. Now, I just read a scientific article that says when you cook with a metal spoon, it pulls all of the medicine and minerals out. Oh, you think these grandmothers knew something? They really did. So you've got different things, and the wood you choose for that spoon makes a difference, because each, remember, the trees are beings. The cottonwood tree reminds us that we're from the stars. It has a star in it. This one, although I have the red on it, I would not use it because of the holes in it. Because it would not, for me, keep that energy in a tight bundle. The direction you stir it, Heyokas are going to go like this. And so are some women. Did you know that in the traditional way, the women's lodge face the east, not the west? That's what I was told. And the person that told me that was Grandma Ketchus. Now remember, I'm talking on Pine Ridge and Standing Rock. It could be totally different on Rosebud. I can only share with you what was shared with me. But those grandmothers always had an east-facing lodge because they said, we give life, and that sun coming up gives life to earth. And that's the reason we face the east. So looking at the frequency, and are there any Heyokas in here? True Heyokas? Aha. What direction is your lodge? East? Yeah. Heyokas do everything backwards. Grandpa was a Heyoka, as long as most of the family. So I got both sides. He I had some interesting training. Let's just put it that way. Even you look at these rattles. There's this one, and there's this one. Which one of those do you think carries the more powerful message in ceremony? This one. Just close your eye. Now listen. Different dimension, different frequency. This one I use when I'm working on other dimensions, but in the lodge, it's different. You know, and the grandmothers told me, when you are drumming, remember that's the skin of the mother. And I watched you, you know that beat. It's not this. It's, you be gentle with that drum. In rhythm, but not the, like the men. That's the men's job. So, we're at Sundance. Who usually prepares the food at Sundance? The women? Yeah. Mhm. Every piece, every food, everything is sacred. And you understand that when you eat that raw liver, and some of you, I've seen people turn away from it, but that built your liver. That's sacred food. Now, in your tradition, it may be eating an orange, and that's okay. But it's where this is and where your knowledge is and where your grandmothers are. Is it a new time? Yes. But the new time is not about dressing so that half of you shows. First of all, if you're in a ceremony and you've got half of you hanging out, the men can't concentrate, right? They just can't, I'm sorry. And that's one of the first things I teach. If it's a mixed lodge, cover yourself. If you're even at a feast, cover yourself. Women do not walk in front of men. Why? Because our energy of the ability to give birth is so strong that if I walked in front of a man, I could take his medicine right with me. I could wipe him clean, if you know how to do that. And sometimes, especially when it's your special time of the month, you do it anyway. So you have seen me this time, a lot of you men saying, would you move forward? I can't step in front of you. I don't want your medicine, I want my own, you know? See, I'm not like her, I'm serious. Okay, I have said this every year. I'm going to say it again. this is very special to me. Someday it will go to someone, I don't know who. This is a Sundance skirt, a male Sundance skirt. It was my son's. He never got to Sundance because he overdosed. I've lost 4 children to overdose. And for you women out there, I know what you're feeling. But it was their choice, even though when someone leaves you, it hurts you. Having been on the other side with 4 near-death experiences, you really aren't sure you ever want to come back. But if you didn't finish your purpose and you commit suicide, you get to come back right away. So you might as well finish it here now. Yeah. So this is a Sundance skirt. When you look at any of the ceremonies, whether they are Druid or they are Lakota or they are anything, they're usually in a what? Circle, right? And the woman's place in that circle is in the middle. So that's why you'll see women wear skirts, because once you have a skirt on, you're standing in the center of that medicine wheel, and it's much easier to connect to Takashala from there. If you've got pants on, it splits your energy. How many sun dancers here? What do you wear? The men, skirts. Why? Because you were told to? Now you know why. You see, there is a meaning of frequency. I mean, Takashala or creator or whatever happens to be very intelligent and doesn't make mistakes at all. So if you begin to look at frequency and geometry and all of those things, example, in ceremony, even when we pass the dipper, and by the way, how many of you pour yanipis or sweat lodges? Are you using a wooden bucket or a metal bucket? The elders told me never use a metal bucket because it attracts those spirits you don't want. Get yourselves wooden buckets. Nobody pours in our lodge on the land that I caretake unless it's a wooden one, is it? No. So when we pass water or do ceremony, it's either in the dipper, which is either wooden or gourd. This is our lodge dipper, a lot of water. But it's natural, you see. But I have seen people use a metal dipper. And yet, remember what I said about the spoons? That it takes the essence out of the food. What do you think it does to the lodge water? This empowers it. This gives it. You know? Some people say to me, have you sundanced? Yeah, I sundanced. One day. Not 4, 1 year. I got tricked into it. I didn't know what a Sundance was. They sent me a dress, told me what to bring. And the first day I got there, they wouldn't let me in the grounds because my skin was white. And I mean, they stopped us right at the gate. And Grandpa's sitting back there just laughing and laughing and laughing. And finally he said, bring her to me. So, and at that time, the prejudice, I never knew prejudice, but at that time, the prejudice was so thick that he put our tent right up against his space And he said, do not walk any place without a native person with you. And I didn't, you know, and I was the only white Sunday person. So I danced. And I fell, passed out. And I came to, and I'm lying on the Sundance ground. And the grandpa's saying, bring her to me. And I'm at his feet. And I said, I need to stop dancing. He said, no. Just no. He says, you have three choices. You can leave the Sundance grounds and stop dancing, and you will never be allowed on the reservation again. Well, first of all, I couldn't stand up. That wasn't an option. Second of his thing he said is, you can go ahead and die. And we'll honor you. We'll have a big feast for you. He says, or you can pull your shit together. So they carried me back to the teepee, and the women were brutal. I would have done anything to get away from those women. They called me every name in the book. You know, I was hurting the sun dancers. I was destroying the ceremony. I was a washishu, which is not a nice term. And finally I got up and went back into the sweat and lined up. And as I lined up, this beautiful woman came over me and handed me this fan, but it was really beat up. And she said, this will help you. So I went back out there and I finished the Sundance, and I went through the sun, through the black sun, to that place out there. When I came back, I found out that that fan was Fool's Cross fan. Let me tell you, I danced about 2 feet off the ground and still didn't know what I was doing. So the next year I took my chanupa to Grandpa and I offered it the 4 times, and he rejected it. And he said, no, you owed me 1 day from that time before when we were together. You're done. Go take care of Aunt Amelia. Nikki, did you know Aunt Amelia, Grandpa's sister? Now, remember, my mother was a schizophrenic. Aunt Amelia was what they call I can't remember the exact term, but Aunt Amelia was schizophrenic. And I was the only one not afraid of her. Nobody else would go near her. But I'd had how many years of practice? So the rest of the Sundances, and Patty was with me for several years. 1 year we put our tent on top of a rattlesnake nest. So, by the way, in case you didn't know, I picked up the habit of jumping around. The elders that I met never talked in a straight line. They were all over the place. So if you're going to offer water or medicine, it needs to be in bone or wood. I even have my medicine spoon that I offer. I'm not using it now, so it usually has sage, cedar, red cloth on it. Now, this is in many, many of the lodges. And they pass the water in it. This is a male instrument, not female. Although some women, when like Pookie said, when you get old enough, you can use either one. And of course, but think about what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, go to an elder in your belief system and find out. And do it right. Because you can get hurt I have seen people die. So it's, and I just scolded her, she's going to get trained. So the love is very important, and Nikki carries it, and she carries it, and all of you carry it. But understanding, if you're going to use the sacred objects, what they're for. Carrie yesterday was wearing the beautiful, beautiful white elk dress. The elk is the one that brings the visions and also carries the sexual energy. That's what the elk does. Is this being helpful?
Yes.
Okay. This is an eagle fan. It was gifted to me. I use it some of the time. Shouldn't show it on camera. Not unless I want to be arrested, but I do have papers. And but in the olden times, the women did not carry eagle fans, they carried heron fans. Why? Do you know why? Water. It's a water bird. How much water does the female have in her body? So when you pick up that heron fan, you're honoring that water. And it gives you actually more power than the eagle fan does, a different kind of power. So every feather that you carry has its own purpose. Don't play with them. Every rock, I see you buying jewelry, you better know what you're buying. Because it could change your life. Literally, change your life. So this is not what I wanted to say, by the way.
Oh, good.
This is a must for every woman and every man. This is my bundle. A lot of people think of the bundle as the chanupa or the pipe. This is not that. I have two bundles. One is my family bundle, which has my children's hair in it and their teeth in it, and people that I want to protect and personal family stuff. And that's my family bundle. This bundle is a power bundle. And the medicine that it has in it is directly connected to me. So when I am doing a unipi, I can put this on the altar and it will work with me, protect me. And, you know, if I make a mistake, this has got it covered. If you're a mother or a grandmother and you have children, make a bundle, a protection bundle for them. Because when you step on this path, there are forces out there that do not want Pookie's knowledge or Nikki's knowledge or Terry's knowledge to be put out there. They just don't want it. And we experienced it on the way here. It's a 7.5 hour drive and it took us 11 hours. It started out with 2 hornets, which I'm highly allergic to, flying out of the air conditioning into the car. That's how it started. Right? And if we were any different, and it even pushed us to the limit. If you are a Pookie or Upor Lodge, right? Yeah, get a helper that always has your back. Somebody that can protect you, not the firekeeper, but somebody who sits beside you and has your back. Because if you go out of body, which happens a lot in a Yanipi that spirit's pouring, you need somebody to protect that physical body and to make sure you get back in it. If you are Christian, and I was 12 years old the first time I saw Jesus, and he was as solid as any one of you. I was lying on the couch and I had scarlet fever, and I looked up and there he was. So I'm not a Christian, I'm a Christian. There's a difference for me, you know. But if you look across, whether it is Christism or Lakota or Navajo or et cetera, when you get down to the core, they all say the same thing. All of them. So let me see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, there's a couple of things I want to show you. By the way, you notice that all of my things are in leather. That's to protect them and keep them sacred. Anything like, you see my hat up there, that's sacred because something gave its life to create it. And then someone created it, and it's got an eagle feather on it that's made of silver, and it's got lapis on it. That's pretty sacred. So you don't put it on the floor. You know, this was my hunka shawl, or when I was made a relative of the Lakota. And I gave it to someone and they gave it back. Because when someone gives you a gift, make sure you want to accept it. Because those gifts sometimes carry with them responsibilities. You know, I gave it to Helen, she gave it back. She chose her grandchildren instead of walking in my moccasins. She gave those back too. They're still hanging out there for somebody to decide to walk in them. But you know, if I'm called to do something, God love my husband, I'm gone. I do it. It's not a choice for me. Does that make any sense? How many of you have given up your life? You have, the Heyoka has, you two have. You're working on it. You have. And when Spirit speaks,
You do.
and that's the other thing, please, when Spirit speaks, like Pookie said, trust. You know? In the book I talk about today, a free ticket came in the mail to Mexico. I didn't say, oh, I can't go. I didn't say, is Mexico safe? I said, oh, I guess I'm supposed to go. And your life will become a gift that you cannot imagine. Cannot imagine how it can become. You know, it's just incredible. Just incredible. And you can be 88 and look like this. So there are different kinds of chanupas. And there is your personal chanupa, which nobody smokes, You don't bring it into a group. It's usually about 6 to 8 inches long. And it's got a very small bowl. And then there is the male chanupa. And the male chanupa has a bowl and comes down and then has an extension. And then goes across. And then there is a female bowl, which is just like this. And then there's a grandmother bowl, if I can get it out. Helen, you want to get it out for me? It's rounded here. That's a grandmother bowl. But they have different frequencies. And I see a lot of times females carrying male chanupas. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging you or telling you it's wrong. I'm telling you, you'll have more power and prayers if you have a female chanupa, because it's connected to your frequency. Frequency, frequency, frequency. You know, and I was going to say something else. What was it? I have till 10:30. 10? What? What is the schedule? What? I have what?
20 minutes. You have till noon. 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Okay, I can finish in 20 minutes. I'm gonna hold that till last. So I think I'm gonna open it to questions. I could keep telling you funny stories, but I'm gonna publicize myself and say, if you want to read them, the book's back there. If you can't read or you have challenges with comprehending, the other book's back there. But anyway, I do have to tell you a funny story about doctors. I volunteered to come here to train doctors. The only way you can train doctors is to be in their office. I drive them crazy. So December 23, I had what was called a massive heart attack. I mean, I was out on the floor, gone, looked down, saw my body, and I said, no, put me back. I'm not going. I don't want my husband to have this trauma. And somebody said to me afterwards, you don't argue with spirit. I said, sometimes I do. If it's Takashila, I don't argue. If it's, depends on where they're coming from. But, you know, we're all equal. The only one we're not equal to is Takashila and Maka and Unchi. And Unchi's the center of the earth, that magnetic fire. So I said, put me back. So they did. And I went to the hospital and they fixed it up. And then I spent 5 days in the intensive care, and Patty was there teaching this stuff to nurses and doctors. And I had a great time. But thank you for being there with me, because you kept a little bit of sanity in there. And so day before yesterday, I get the new report on my heart. Now, I've asked on Facebook for not healing. I don't believe in healing. I believe in you helping me remember my perfection. And there's a big difference between those two, because when you say she needs healing, you're saying something's wrong. There's nothing wrong with me. I just need an adjustment, a tuning, a new transmission, something like that. So the new report came back and it said, she did not have a heart attack. By the way, on the first one, they told me I had massive valve damage and lung damage because I was without blood for 30 minutes. So the new report says she did not have a heart attack. Her old stent failed and we replaced it. And we can't find any damage in her heart or lungs. And I just sat there and laughed and laughed and laughed, you know, but they don't understand it. You know, I had 2 strokes about a couple months ago, massive strokes in my left hemisphere. I haven't had any symptoms. And so the doctor says, we don't understand why you're not having any symptoms, why you're even here. And I said, don't worry about it. I don't use my left brain anyway. It's your left brain is your logical brain. And for me, it's just not there. What I have found that through that gift, I am partially here and partially on another dimension at all times. So I see things a little bit differently. And what you're doing is beautiful. It pushes your buttons. It's either something you have done to somebody else or someplace you've not healed. You create your own life here. Nobody else is responsible for that. So, I'm going to take about 3 questions and then I have one more thing to show you. Okay, any questions? Yes.
How much of the Celtic tradition that you were raised with do you, if any, incorporate into your
None.
Lakota path?
None, no. Ceremonies are ceremonies, all right? The question was, how much of the Druid do I incorporate into the Lakota? Absolutely none. There are 2 different vibrations. The Celtic ceremony is connected to the moon. The Lakota is connected to the sun. I would never mix them. One is over here and one's over there. Do I have a Celtic altar? Yeah, way down the field away from the lodge. Do they accomplish the same thing? Yeah. But on this level, what I'm talking to you about is not going off over there half-assed, but understanding that as a human being, understanding frequency, not mixing, and the sacredness of everything. How important that is. When you take, like Pookie said, do you bless the shower? Do you bless the water? Do you thank those animals or those vegetables or that cow or that chicken when you eat? Not in ceremony, every day. Every day. I want you to come up. I want you to both put your feet flat on the floor and open your heart and hands. And you come here. This is a rock. It's a simple rock, and I'm going to ask Nikki if she agrees to it, to show it to you. I was down in Arizona, and I was supposed to go to my next presentation, and I had laryngitis and couldn't give it. So I stayed in Arizona, and we went to some archaeological sites that they wouldn't let us go to. But they said, you can go down there by the railroad tracks and anything you find you can keep. And so I'm walking along and I stub my toe. And I reach down and I'm going to ask Nikki to show it to you. Just show it. Can you all see it? Hold it up high. That's the star beings that have been here forever. Oh, you got it upside down. You have it standing on it. Now like this. Just feel it. This is where you came from. This is a piece of who you are. Just put it in there. Now, who are you? The scientists have just discovered that they can take pure white light and through a process, turn it into a solid material object. Now, these are scientists. Guess what happened? You are absolutely brilliant, pure white light and love that has been manifested into a solid form. So that light can experience this. So as you grow, you strengthen that white light. You strengthen the creator. You don't have to love yourselves. When I tried to love myself, I saw love. I couldn't. So I saw love way out there that was walking towards me, and I allowed it to walk towards me. And I began to see it in others, like you. And it got closer, and when it got pretty close, I began to get really scared. So then I allowed love to walk beside me, and finally I let the love enter me. But it's not always that instant thing. Be patient with yourself. Now I'm going to give you one more piece of advice. At 88, I've learned 3 things that are important to your life. 1, love yourself, creator, and everybody else. That's a key. And love hard. Love your husband and don't try to change him. Love your wife. Don't try to change them. They're on their path. If they're giving you a hard time, thank them. That doesn't mean you have to stay there, but thank them. There are people in here I've talked to that are going through some really challenging times, but you will find out it's a gift. Absolutely a gift. The second thing is take at least an hour a day for you, with nobody around. I don't care if you watch news or read a trash novel or listen to a podcast. I don't care what you do, but do it for you. Something that brings you joy. Mine is gardening. And the last is don't worry about anything, because when you get my age, you can't remember what you were worrying about. So now back to the questions, or yeah, what do you want me to do? What, 6 minutes?
Still going strong. You're right, Mama.
Yeah, when I was in Hawaii, I learned the hula. You don't do it with your hips, you do it with your knee, and you move your knee in a circle like this.
You got it.
You don't, but you don't move your hips. You'd have back trouble unbelievable if you did that. You know, so but that's the energy. Pookie, we wouldn't let her on the Sundance to do the hula. One more question. Yes. Would somebody say it real loud so I can hear it? Who was my grandpa? No. Well, I got the opportunity to be with Grandpa Foolscrow. And I got the opportunity to be with Grandpa Ketches. but grandma catches.
Yeah.
And grandma, but my main teacher was Grandpa Dubray, who most people didn't know about because he never wore a bonnet. I never saw him in anything but navy blue polyester pants and a white button-up shirt. That was it. No medicine. He says, I don't need that stuff. I'm just a hollow bone. But let me tell you, the things I saw him do and the love he gave. I mean, he showed up yesterday for me, and it's just, I can't tell you that love connection. You know. Now, the family didn't like me because I was teaching someone else, he was teaching someone outside the family. And that's why he began to send me to Mexico and Peru and Thailand and all these places. And I was over in Hawaii, and the Huna over there was giving me a very, very hard time. I mean, a really hard time, you know, just putting me down. And I had a native woman with me, and he was just, you know, like this. And I said to him, you know, you're treating me just like that old man up there in South Dakota. And he says, you mean Grandpa DeGray? Oh, so there's a whole network of both grandmas and grandpas out there that know what's going on. And please, if a grandma or a grandpa asks you to sit with them and ask you something, then tell your story. But don't sit down and force your story on them because they already know it anyway. And I've watched, and this is not a criticism, this is a lack of knowledge. You know, if an elder's standing, you get up and give them your seat, especially if they're up here in the front row, because we can't hear. You see? So it's about respect. You don't, although I allow it in most cases, you don't go up and hug somebody unless you know where they're at. Because in the way both the Druid and the Lakota, you just don't do that. You don't look somebody in the eyes. And I watch you guys try to force me to look in your eyes. You look over the shoulder. Because that, unless you want a spirit to spirit connection, you don't look into that eye. It's rude, just plain rude. When anyone comes to your house, in both traditions, of course, they're a little bit different. In the Lakota way, you offer them some coffee or water, and you don't ask if they want anything. You just serve it. If they drink it, they drink it. If they don't, they don't. Right? In the Irish way, you give them a glass of whiskey. So, but I'm teasing on that. But yeah, we Irish. I drink one cup of coffee. I don't drink the alcohol anymore. But man, 80% of all Irish people are alcoholics. It's a genetic thing. So if you're Irish, I would not touch it. So that's it. I think I'm on time. By the time I get this out of here, I'm never on time. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to share. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You can mention what.
Thank you so much, grandmother. She's a little powerhouse, isn't she? We had the pleasure of bunking with her the first time the second time she came here. We kept her up half the night. We were like a bunch of little schoolgirls on a sleepover, right? Ruthie was there. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. So thank you, grandmother, for all the wisdom that you share and all your teachings. It's so greatly appreciated. Please remember, all of grandmother's books are in the back, so please make sure she has all her copies back there.
I need to see at least one person from each chalet because I brought you Ojabi.
Very exciting. Hey, a quick announcement. The Indigenous Chef has just opened up their doors. Ooh, I'm sure it's lunchtime. I'm sure everyone's hungry. But I also want to make an announcement again about the lost and found. If anything is lost and you find it,